Hey everybody, hope your day is going well. We are back with another reaction. I just finished reacting to all songs on Sgt Pepper, of course, by the Beatles. Incredible album. I've been going through their albums chronologically, song by song on Patreon. It's an amazing journey, learning a lot about music, about history, going off on side quests and reading some books and checking out interviews and documentaries. And the algorithm knows what it needs to serve me. It's serving me up more and more Beatles stuff, which I don't mind. In this case, I saw this video pop up. George Martin, the legendary producer, will be talking about Sergeant Pepper, I guess, how the Summer of Love, I guess, about that, and how Sergeant Pepper became like the voice for that time or something. So let's see uh, what my man has got for us. Let's go.
Is the title of the book. It actually does a lot more than that. I mean, this is virtually your memoir of working with the Beatles, isn't it?
Kind of, yes.
Okay, you got me at book. If you see my background, I love books. All right, I'm gonna have to write that down and check it out.
Also of the particular period, because I call it Summer of Love, because 66 and 67...
Oh, that's the name of his book.
I remember very clearly as being
right,
extraordinary, revolutionary kind of times in social life apart from music. Everything was happening then. It was the Mary Carnaby Street. It was a flower power and hippies and love and sex was suddenly invented. Nobody ever heard of it before.
Not even you, George.
Especially not.
Wow, now we know the origin story of it, huh? What about the other 100,000 years? There's a lot happening, musically, culturally. What a time.
Do you think that something like, I mean, my sense of it is that in a way that something like that Sgt Pepper album actually helped to create the kind of the conditions for the social changes that you're talking about?
I suppose it did. It certainly wasn't the intention, A lot of people have talked about this book and the Beatles in particular, saying it was all planned, but although they did what they wanted to do, they weren't setting themselves up as being prophets or anything, or trying to change the face of nature. They just wanted to go into the studio and make their kind of music. Simple as that.
Before you actually made Sgt Pepper, did you have any sense that this was going to be the big one? Was there any sort of feeling of that?
No, even when I made it, I didn't think it was going to be the big one, as you put it. I didn't think I'd be talking about...
That's how he put it, but does Mr. Martin agree? I don't know. I still have quite a few albums to go, right? The White Album, Abbey Road, and those are the albums that I've, even before I, was getting into this deep dive, that I've heard of. You see that white cover, you've seen the iconic Abbey Road. People recreate that photo even if they are not Beatles fans, right? So it's that iconic. It's that iconic. People go to London, they go to the street, make the photo, and maybe have almost never heard any Beatles songs except for the ones they heard on the radio. So those are the ones I kept hearing about. And for people who are into music, of course, Rubber Soul, Revolver, Help, you will know this inside and out. But if you look at it from somebody who's not into music and you hear about those later albums, which are big, rightfully so, I tremendously enjoyed Sgt. Pepper. Looking forward to the next ones. But Rubber Soul, like, I had never heard about Rubber Soul before getting into the Beatles. That album name, that title, I had never heard of it. But man, that one left a big, big impression on me. I love that album. I love Revolver too. From Help on out, it's like just the incline that you're on is wild.
About it 30 years later. But I knew it was going to be different, and I was very excited about it.
It's different.
Why did you know it was going to be different?
Well, because we'd done different things. I mean, they got fed up with touring. They've been, by this time, in the end of 66, I'd known them for 4 years, and they'd been working their pants off all over the world, going from one concert to another, to a television show, to a radio, hotel rooms after hotel rooms. And they were prisoners of their fame. And they got really fed up with it, and so they said, well, we're not going to do it anymore. We're definitely not going to do it anymore. We're going to just make music instead. And we can spend time making the kind of music we want to make, not just a simple little 2-minute pop boiler that we can perform in front of hordes of screaming kids. They'd always written, up to that time, music which could be performed.
Yeah.
Suddenly they realised they could write music which just couldn't be performed.
And use the recording studio almost as another instrument, or...
It was, and yes, it was like they had a new canvas on which to paint.
Nice.
How much did...
What an evolution, right? And maybe like Pet Sounds had something to do with that. Brian Wilson not touring, having more time in the studio, while Beach Boys were on tour, actually, and he's making stuff, thinking about stuff. And if you're not going from hotel room to hotel room, a lot of time frees up, a lot of energy frees up, and that creativity's coming. So that's a great decision, man. Even though the fans probably said, "Oh, please come back and perform live," but then they give you Sgt. Pepper and all the other music afterwards. That's cool.
You
man.
actually, how much were you guiding them and how much were you leading them? I know that's a rather broad question, but
I certainly wasn't leading them. I guess I was guiding them. They had enormous musical curiosity. They always wanted to find out what was beyond the next bit, and they wanted to explore. And as I'd done a lot of exploration myself, I was able to sort of show them things we could do. Things like backward tapes and speeds and all kinds of effects and so on, which they loved. They loved all the gimmicks and the tricks, If ever I showed them something like that, they would then do it ad nauseum.
I know this is an invidious question to ask you, really, but what was the track on this album, Sgt. Pepper, that you were most proud of?
Oh, gosh.
She's Leaving Home.
I think there are quite
incredible.
a few. I suppose, there's so many I like. I love She's Leaving Home, although I didn't do the score. I think it's
oh man, that song is just it's a masterpiece. But so many with the is it Within You and then Without You, right? Life Will Flow, Within You, Without You by George Harrison. Incredible song, very thought-provoking. Creative stuff with Mr. Kite, Lovely Rita, so much fun with that one. Mr. Kite, I really like that. Almost a promotion for the circuit. Like, it's so creative. And John Lennon was such a melodic, hypnotic, psychedelic voice. It's, with a little help from my friends, it just doesn't stop. A Day in the Life. It's insane.
Terrific song. I suppose the one I'm most proud of is being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, because I really was part of putting that together as a collage.
Good. With all those circus noises.
Yeah, all the circus noises, and that really worked, and I was very, very happy about that.
It was inspired by the poster, right?
I mean, this is an enormously complicated album to make. Was it actually an easy album to make? Was the working atmosphere quite congenial?
Yes, we had good fun. I mean, it was the happy days before strife set in. And
so John and Paul were still very much on speaking terms?
Yeah, I mean, oh, sure. I mean, I think John and Paul were always on speaking terms, even when they were fighting each other. They really loved each other very much, and there were lots of problems later on. But the nice thing about it was we did actually get back together in the end. Abbey Road was the last one we did, and that was very harmonious. No, but at this time, in Pepper time, we were having fun, and they were having fun. There were a lot of giggles in the studio.
Yeah.
Man, and that really comes through on the album. There's so much fun, and while reacting to some of the funny clips, we've done this on the channel. Some of their answers or press conferences and interviews, the wit, the playing around. There's humor on the other albums too, but this one they really had fun. Who am I saying to people who this album is almost 6 decades old. But you can feel that fun in it too, right? They're playing with all these techniques. They're playing with lyrics, new concepts. Yeah, it's really, for me, it's a great first experience to go through that. Of course, it's not 1967. I'm not living in that time. I didn't live it firsthand, but it's as close as I'm gonna get. And I don't really go outside, so I don't know what's happening outside in the world, guys. I don't know. Is there still anybody out there? I don't know. I'm here in my attic and I'm listening to the Beatles.
There are many interesting sort of sidelights on the Beatles' career in this book, because it really is, your recollection of working with the Beatles over a long period.
Wow,
I think I was most struck by that thing John Lennon said to you in the 1970s, that he would quite gladly have re-recorded everything the Beatles ever did. And he said this to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not exactly a...
Shook me rigid. I was with him in his Dakota apartment one night. We spent the night together, the evening together, and we were just rapping about old times. And he suddenly came out and he said, I wish I'd like to do everything all over again. I said, come on, John, not everything. He said, yeah, everything. I said, you mean you don't think we ever did anything right? He said, most of what we did was crap. I said, you can't say it. What about Strawberry Fields? He looked at me and said, especially Strawberry Fields, which really floored me. But then John's dreams were always dreams. They never became reality. He always envisioned things that were more beautiful, greater, more extraordinary than anything he could possibly really realise in real life.
So this wasn't him just sort of petulantly turning his back on his past?
No, he was always like that. I mean, everything he did, even after he left the Beatles, he still thought he could do better.
And do you think now that the Beatles, obviously, they had a career of, 9-10 years. Do you think that they were, in a sense, musically, that they'd done it musically when they split, or do you think they still continued?
I think if they'd stayed together, they would have gone on doing greater things, but you couldn't expect them to, because it was remarkable, I think, that they lasted together as long as they did. They all wanted their own freedom. They all wanted their own way of life, and they all wanted their own egos back. They'd submerged their egos into a thing called the Beatles. And they grew tired of that. They got fed up with it. I'm George Harrison. I'm Paul McCartney. I want to be somebody, not just the Beatles. And I knew something of that because I felt something of that too. Everyone referred to me as being, the Beatle producer, and I got a bit fed up with it. I have done other things, I would say to people.
Yeah, people, do that. But of course, if you make such a big impact, it's tough. You watch Macaulay Culkin, you'd think Home Alone. You thought of Chris Reeve, you think Superman, although he had played in many other films, right? It's the connection that our brain makes, and there's no bigger impact than the Beatles, so you can't get around that beast. It's impossible, right? Like I just mentioned before, even if you're not into music, you know who the Beatles are. That's just a thing that as much as they're air to breathe and water to drink. The Beatles are part of life.
And I suppose, finally, George, the question everyone wants to know, really, I mean, why is Sgt Pepper the album that everybody remembers? When Beatles albums are mentioned, it's always one. Personally, there are albums which I almost prefer to Sgt Pepper, but yet I accept the fact that Sgt Pepper is the album that is the reference
I do
point.
Too, by the way. It's not my favourite album.
And what's your favourite?
I love Rubber Soul. I love Revolver.
I love Revolver. I think Revolver.
I love
but
those.
I also love Abbey Road. I think Abbey Road's super.
Yeah.
I need to get to that
I think it's
one,
an
man.
icon. It's one of those things that happened at a particular time which summed up the generation. It really represented what young people were about, and it became. I don't know, just like anything else, just became something that people will always remember.
Yeah.
It's that strange sort of...
That is kind of nice. Like if you lived through that time and you were of a certain age group and you had this summer and there's this music associated with it that is so good and so strong and everybody's into it, it becomes such a big part of your life. Because when you think about those times, the music will always be part of it, not, from your life. And everybody has different memories with that music. But the one constant is that music. Even if one friend group is having some crazy experiences that summer that you're not aware of with your friend group, both are experiencing the Beatles. So all that it's like in the air that we breathe. Like I just said, it's wild, man. Oh, damn, I need a time machine.
English thing of dressing up that it seems to commemorate as well. I mean, there were the Beatles done it in these quite ridiculous costumes.
Absolutely ridiculous. Incidentally, do you notice that two of them wear their MBEs on the cover?
I hadn't noticed that, no, really. Oh, dear. Well, there's one for pop sociologists to ponder over in years to come.
We meant more to kids than Jesus did, or religion at that time.
And there's chanting, people hating us all the way.
So by then it was like, don't tell anyone, but this is probably our last gig.
But I was really too scared to walk away. I was thinking, well, this is like the end, really. There's no more touring.
So I just thought, if there was a band, what would be a mad name for it?
And it was for love.
Great idea.
It was for love
Great
and bloody
idea.
peace again, you know? It was a fabulous time.
Gotta love Ringo.
You know, that Summer of Love, a lot of that was bullshit, really. It was all what the press was saying, but there was definitely a vibe.
I was influenced by acid and got psychedelic, you know, like the whole generation. But really, I like rock and roll, you know.
There it is, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Great song, incredible album. It's always great to hear and learn more now from George Martin himself, legendary producer. And yeah, this was super interesting. I love learning more about this journey, getting a little bit of a sense of just everything that was going on in the culture and trying to, like soak myself into it. It's the closest thing you can get to experiencing it. It's beautiful. Thank you for checking this out with me. Hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.